One of them, yes, you absolutely. That's perfect. Perfect. Okay. All set to go?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. I'm so sorry about all that.
Oh, no problems at all. This is WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM. And we have with us at WZRD Tristan Tom, co-creator of Grandma D and the Magic Book Machine. Welcome, Tristan. How are you?
Great. Thanks so much for having me there, Trudy. I really appreciate you having me back. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. And by the way, it's not that big of a deal, but wizards try to remain anonymous while we're on the air. So just Miss Wizard is fine.
My bad. I'm sorry.
No, it's no problem at all. Okay, Tristan. Well, we are very, very glad to have you back because there is so much to discuss. First of all, why don't you introduce us to the characters that you helped create? Tell us who created them, but first, introduce us to the characters of Grandma D and the Magic Book Machine.
Sure. I'm just gonna pick up my computer and kind of show you a few of the folks back here.
Okay.
That's all right.
Yes, that's fine.
Awesome. I'll see if I can get this without pulling away. So up here, we have, this is Grandma D up here. She is run by a wonderful performer named Jamie Black. And then we have our fair Miss Fifi LaFontaine, who is a little full of herself, we shall say, where Grandma gives wise advice, sage advice, if you will, and lots of love. Fifi is kind of self-involved in lots of making sure she looks a certain way. She was actually in the story, she's a rescue dog, if you will, from a circus. And so they took this dog in and they live there now with the family on the outside of Prideville Forest. Over here, we have got, if you look back here, we have Novis Peeverton with the, he is a beaver and is kind of the school bully, if you will. And then we have the two siblings. This is the lighter minty colored blue is Ashley or Ashe. And then this is their brother, Brandon. Ashe is a 6-year-old child. They are transgender. This is their older brother, who is 8 years old, who is a supportive ally of and loving of their brother and their sibling Ashe, or Ashley, as it were right now. We're in the middle of things. So with that, we have a couple of live characters, and I'm working on another one right now to add to this cavalcade of crazy. But I've been working on these characters since 2016, and so they've come quite a ways in development and what I sought out to do with them. And the live character that is Ashe's special friend, confidant, and really imaginary friend, helps them along through their journey of life, as well as Grandma D and Brandon and everybody. They all kind of tie together in one big story each time, but we have like
Tristan, I do not know if you hear me, but you froze. Tristan, you froze? this is live radio for you, WZRD listeners. So you hopefully you enjoy the show, and then of course there are very unpredictable parts of live radio, and you never know when there will be a gem here and there. And yes, we think that our guest, Tristan Tom, realized that he froze, likely, maybe. Hang on just a second while I turn the music back on. Hello, this is WCRD. How can we help you? Oh, Bob, please call back later. We're in the middle of an interview right now.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no, that's okay.
Don't know what's going on.
It's no problem. Live radio, there's it's much we love live radio, and
Yeah,
sometimes
same
this happens.
Yeah, just like live theater, you got to just roll with the punches.
Exactly.
All right. But I'm not sure where I left off, but basically all of these characters are, we're either a focus on one, or it might be a couple of things that are going on that we all kind of inevitably come back for one solving of the issue at the end of the show, which is usually paired with, well, it's always paired with a book that helps us come to the solution. Oh, and that's it too. If you haven't seen, right directly behind me is the magic book machine. I just attached our sign to it, but normally that's where the book sits at the end. But so it's all made out of recyclables. Other than the structure of itself, everything else has been recycled game board pieces and hunks of just kids' toys and stuff like that that we've reassembled into what out pops a book at the end of it here. So yeah, the kids get to, for instance, they would drop into here. What used to be a orange cone that you put outside that the street workers use.
Yes, is the base of the cone?
You would draw things out of grandma's trunk that she has that her and her wife used when they went traveling around the world. And so they take things out and put it into the kids, because it's in the live audience. The kids get to come up and put it in here. Whereas if we're on the internet, it's just one of the other characters that helps place. And so after that, they do hit the buttons and everything. And we have our light up things that usually turn on for that. And I just left them on for this. And then the book pops out of our little door down here. And that's how grandma and everybody reads the book. And the live show, since they can't be holding the book, the live character walks around the room and turns the page so that all of the children can see the book as well. Ideally, it would be cool to have it on a screen in the back, but hey, we're small potatoes at this point to be able to afford things like that.
Well, story time is usually just the kids are sitting on the floor and then watching the person read. So you have your reader walking about the stage and reading. It's much more relatable to story time than something on the screen. So you're fine.
Yeah. Also too, with that, kids always, their minds are always going. And so that is, anything catches their eye, they're looking. So my whole idea was, you can't have somebody just sitting in the middle of the room turning the page, because it's only got 2 pictures on it. So you want to make some sort of movement, not too abrupt, but from back and forth, just so that everybody in the audience can see the page and what we're talking about, whilst the characters are reading the book behind us. So, yeah.
So what kind of objects from their travels would Grandma Dee and her wife drop inside into the cone, right?
Okay. Let me do this. So got a stack of children's books here. So we read all sorts of books from, from things of like Jane Lynch's Marlene, Queen of Mean, which is about anti-bullying and kind of giving everybody a chance. But the one that so our first one we did, which was I Am Jazz, and it's by Jazz Jennings and Jessica Herthel. And this one's extra special to me because of the author's immediate response to our show the first year, and her cheering us on, saying, keep doing what you're doing. So I want to use this book as much as I can because it has, beyond that, it's just a great message. And it's the child's realistic life experience. But with this, when it comes popping out of our machine, the kids would draw out things like in here she's obsessed. I don't want to say obsessed. She really loves mermaids, right? So there were some mermaid things. It talks about her not feeling as though that they are a girl. So there were a jump rope and pom-poms and things, if you see in the picture there, just things that reminisce from what's going on in the book. There's like a baseball and a truck, things like that no matter what you pull out and put it in the machine, it automatically, it's little pieces from the book that they're putting. So it'll just be like something that, like if you look here, it might be Marlene's big bow. So you know that you pull out or something to that effect. But this one, it was mermaids and sparkly things and pom-poms, a baseball, a soccer ball, a couple different other items too. But just give a chance to some kids. Unfortunately, not every child has a chance to get up and do it. And that causes a few, that would cause, I want to do it, but you can only have a couple come up. Otherwise, your show's going to last for 100 years.
Right. By the way, that book, how does jazz fit into the book?
Well, this is, I don't want to give away the end of this because this child has had quite success. If this is actually they have a show on TLC. Their name is Jazz Jennings. I think it is just called I Am Jazz. And it follows their life, starting as, I want to say she was 4 or 6. I would have to look at it again. When she knew she was not in the body she was supposed to be in. And feelings in her heart and her head, like I tell my kids, heart and head is where you are. Or excuse me, brain and heart is where you lie. This is the shell. This is just what you have for now. So this story has not only just a beautiful message, it includes beautiful artwork by Sheila McNicholas. She's also done quite a few other children's books, doing illustrating. When I'm looking for books like that, I have to find ones that nowadays are, if you take a look, most pages don't have a lot of words on them. And I choose those for this age group because kids they've got so much going on in their minds that sometimes they're not taking on all the information. So in these books, the information is there and it's succinct and it's in the form of a wonderful story tale that they can relate to. Like, because for instance, this one is about two dads and finding a baby to love. Everybody understands love, right?
Yes.
So it doesn't matter if it's two male penguins, they're just penguins to kids. It doesn't matter. They understand love, and everything else is just extra bonus that they understand, because kids are just so perceptive. They, in the conversations that I had as a teacher, kids speak frankly. They have no filter, and are not afraid to ask any question. And I appreciate that about children. And so picking the books, not only do I want them to reflect what I'm doing, but I want them to, I want to give back to these kids things that aren't often in schools. For instance, empathy. We could be teaching these things. We could be. There are ways. It's just those aren't things that are like math or science or something like that, though they're just as important as math or science or something like that. So I try to, as much as possible, pick books that are relatable to children, and oftentimes relatable to children who, well, sometimes I do personal favorites. Everybody loves a good llama llama, but I also do ones that are more inclusive. This one is a special one that I used to read in my classroom as well, for our friends with who have autism. And because our show is such a bright and tactile show, I guess you could say, because of the different fabrics that we use, they're all different, and so ideally for a community like those who are in the autism community, I would love to be able to be involved with live shows with these kids, because of the love that these characters naturally give, because of what I was discussing before, in that all children pretty much from 1.5 on that I've noticed, this is my own experiences, they respond to puppets in a way as though they are you and I talking to them, or not you and I, but like children of their own age, right? But just white or purple and blue. And so you see these kids interacting, and it doesn't matter if they have autism or not. They see them as non-threatening puppets or toys, if you will, at that point, that are just cuddly and fun. And if we can get a message across for loving and fun to kids with autism simply through a book, then I've done my work. Or if there's others in the audience who come to understand through our storylines, that's when that's when we succeed.
Are you looking for autistic kid audiences now, or do you already have them?
No, I think I should have best explained. I'm ultimately, this is such a, I don't want to use rainbow as in LGBTQ, but under the rainbow of everyone, there is an equal representation for everyone in television shows and in theater experiences, even that I've worked on backstage and things. There's just, it's different. And so to have characters that are equally represented on stage or in film or in puppetry, it's something that I'm striving for with that, in that some of the characters, I point up here because that's where I have a shelf of the puppet up there. But there are elements of certain, the next puppet that I'm making is going to be is going to have autism in their makeup. They will be an animal. I don't want to give it away because I'm excited to get everything to get it on all put together, and then I can show it. But I've always sought out for everyone to be included. It's just who I am as a person. Inclusion is important. And if kids can see at an early age that they have equal representation out there, be it on a stage or on a computer screen, I don't want to say it's an inspiration, but I see kids like using that to propel themselves, like just, wow, there's somebody like me. Oh my goodness. It's the same for when I'm around kids who are questioning their sexuality or something, and they have questions, teenagers or what have you, I mean. And so it's trying to get a message across responsibly, and that you're making sure that you're telling these kids that essentially that they're loved, and that that you're welcome here in this puppet land. We have somebody for everyone here, and inevitably we want to have that. I want across the board puppets. I can't keep up with making them all though, for every representation that I want in our little Prideville forest community. Yeah.
Well, when you create these, well, you did mention that you want to convey empathy. So
Yes.
it seems as if you're aiming that all your puppets will be part of the plan to convey empathy, so that they play off each other, and you could present the conflicts. However, when you were in school, the school curriculum for teachers, were there ever any classes or any discussions, any focus on empathy in teaching?
No, not that a lot of the schools, I shouldn't say a lot, a majority of the schools that I've worked in or earlier substituted in, it's just not, they're looking to get through the day. They're not looking, they're just looking to get what's done. Math, get it done. They're not, teachers care about their kids. They do. They absolutely do. It's a rarity that I've ever been, oh my God, that teacher should not be here. Never. I can see the love, even in teachers who might be a little burnt out after a year. You can still see that they love those kids. They do anything for them. But within the school, the empathy is claimed a lot of times, that they're trying to help teachers and take a load off of them, or it's just, I don't see it, unfortunately. And then it passes through it skips the hallways of the schools and daycares, and then we're seeing these behaviors on the L train or just in the news. And all of this is just by showing the old saying, shoe on the other foot, it's different when it's basically looking at somebody else's from their point of view. That's all it is. And going, would I want would I want this? Would I want to be hurt by my friend here? No. So it's just simply like using the simplistic of words to get across, because kids, again, like I said before, kids are so intelligent. Oftentimes they're more perceptive than adults. And so it's not like we can't talk to children as though they don't understand. They do understand. And so a lot of these, I keep pointing at the books, but a lot of these topics are things that might not be talked at home with their families. But I've also, in a couple of the books, Julian is a mermaid, I've had parents thank me as a teacher, thank you for reading that. We went out and bought that book then. So there are, books have a natural appeal to children, whether it's the colors or the words or it doesn't even, that book that I just mentioned, it has the least amount of words, but it is the most amazing book. And it's just, aesthetics are just all over. Absolutely wonderful. And so to be able to teach through very little words through a book, it shows me that through just these pages, we can convey that you are accepted here, here, here. And so the kids get that. I've seen it right in front of me. And with the nice messages and emails that I've gotten, like I said, support from authors, and then also just from the parents thanking me. And I never expected that. I have a neurodivergent daughter who sat still for 10 minutes. Thank you. Keep doing it. So I know we're on a path, and I know people are excited about these wacky characters. We do love our live show and want to get that back out there as well. And looking to the fall, I'm hoping that will come about with when we get our grant in September. So very excited about that. We got a DCASE grant through the state, and so thank you, DCASE. And yeah, so we've got some things on the burner coming up, but that's so far.
Did you create all these characters then with
Yep. Everything top to bottom is me. Wrote the scripts. I made the props and the machine, the trunk, the puppets, the set, the movable set. So that's everything. Yeah, and most of it, like I said before, everything is recycled or given to me aside from Ashe, everything else is recyclables.
So what is it about Ashe then that's he's not recyclable?
They were the most important one to me, and I wanted to start them out in fabric that I knew would, because I wanted them to have a certain look, and I just frankly wasn't finding it in the fabric, and that in the thrift stores and things.
Yes.
And in my own collection of random fabric, as I costume design. I didn't have anything, and so I kind of was upset with myself, but I did need to get going on the puppet, so I just opted to go to the fabric store. No fancy story behind it, just like, I guess I'll go get some from the fabric store.
So is it that the blue of Ashe's face, is that from the fabric store?
Yes, so all of Ashe and their glasses and their hair,
Mhm.
Here we go. And their hair is all stuff from the fabric store. Oops.
Mhm.
And so, sorry, it's gonna put this guy on for a minute. So this is Ashe.
Mhm.
And so their face,
Mhm.
the locks,
The hair, yes. Mhm.
and their teeth
Mhm. The
and the
lips.
inner mouth. I'm
Mhm.
sorry.
The
Yeah,
lips too.
all of that. Yep,
Mhm.
everything here was from fabric store, and I guess I did purchase the glasses. So, but
Mhm.
everything else was donated or I got thrift wise at
I- Yeah,
so
the whole puppet matches so beautifully, like the color and the locks and the face, and then the glasses and the fabric of the clothing too, the plaid clothing.
yeah. Uh, I wanted to try to find something that still, because they're in the middle and they're questioning things,
Mhm.
we read like pink is for boys, things like that that are that promote just like there's no feminine, masculine, just be yourself. That
Mhm.
colors are for everyone. I started this barring Fifi was my first, so
Oh.
before excuse me after Fifi, if you look, because I haven't created all of them yet, but they are taking on each color of the rainbow.
Mhm.
So the offshoots, if you will. So this is my green, if you will. There's a purple. We've got a pink. Got the blue. So we're working on creating, or I'm working on creating that.
Mhm.
Um,
How many characters did you need in order to uh, do the first show? And what was the first show?
the first one I did actually was just in my classroom,
Mm.
and it started out with just her, Fifi.
Mhm.
Uh, she's reading to the kids, and it was just regular um, like Llama Llama, kids' favorites. Anna Dudney, who passed away last year, the year before.
Oh.
Absolutely wonderful author.
Mhm.
Llama Llama and the Bully Goat, obviously talking about bullying. Um, but yeah, she was invented to engage the children.
Mhm.
And then after I saw how engaged the children could be, uh, mixed with interactions with family pickup, I saw in my classroom, uh, after story times and things, I ended up seeing how or grandmothers would come and interact. And it didn't
Mhm.
matter if it was a mom, a dad, an auntie, whoever they were living with. When a grandma came in, children run and hugs and everything. And it got me thinking, yeah, grandmas give the best hugs. And so then when I read about this thing at Pride Films and Plays in 2017, um, for the children's summer program, all I had was this show that I had written with the puppet, with the dog. I had him created, and Grandma D.
Branded.
And
Mhm.
so it was just myself and those three, because Ashe, it takes a minute for me to whip up a puppet, and I just didn't have them completed by that time. So it was just the three. And that was 2017. And Grandma was originally designed like you can actually uh, put a human's arms in there. She was designed so that the child after the show could come up and she would be able to hug them. But I've
Oh.
since had to redesign the body because that was just, it was too much weight for the puppeteer. And so we had, that can't be done anymore, but that was the original design
Mhm.
idea.
Mhm.
Because every kid, like I said, a hug from grandma is the best. So with that, she just kind of became this cuddly, old, eccentric inventor who has these great grandkids. I don't mean great, I mean awesome grandkids.
Mhm.
And then their dog as well, their dog friend. Because,
Mhm. When so it's Grandma D that created the magic book machine.
say again?
It's Grandma D that is the character that created the magic book machine.
Yes, the story is that they used to go into, because the children live with grandma and Fifi part-time and then live a couple other days with their dad in Chicago.
Mm.
So they basically live in this suburb, if you will, called Prideville Forest. They live on the edge of Prideville Forest. And so they used to be able to go to the library every couple of days. But much like everything in Chicago, the bus stopped running out that way. They had to come up with a new way because grandma doesn't have a car and she doesn't drive. So they had to, since she is a retired inventor, her and the oldest child, Brandon, um, decided to make a machine so that they could make books to read and not have to go to the library. So that is where that they still do on occasion go to the library. We do talk about going to the library quite a bit to just get the kids out there to go to the library.
Mhm.
It's a fabulous place, and we got wonderful libraries in Chicago. Jessie Huddling, forgive my pronunciation, Jessie, uh, the librarian up in Rogers Park is phenomenal.
Mhm.
She has a children's story time that is so great for like babies on up. She's just got a wonderful personality too. But she's I like to think that all the librarians in Chicago are like Jessie.
Mhm. When you there's the backstory about how the magic book machine was created. Did you incorporate this the story into different episodes as well? Because we weren't able to watch all the episodes. Uh,
Right. Yes. It doesn't talk about the pre-backstory because I'm saving that for hopefully something ever happens. I can give way a lot of more backstory to these characters
got it. Mhm.
because I haven't even covered the fact that there is only the family is what it is. There's been no how it got there, and I don't think it needs to be told. We can
Mhm.
just accept that a family is a family and the
Mhm.
way it is. Don't want to really get into the nitty gritty of all that. Like let kids just know that there's family, whether it's a dog or a plant or that's just family's family.
Oh,
And
what? Yeah, what I meant was the there being a less public transportation and the necessity of creating the magic book machine. Were there some episodes in which this arc was uh,
oh,
shown?
yes, in that we couldn't get to Chicago. We
Yes.
we we mentioned that quite a few times, and there was at the beginning of pandemic those few because, like I said, my partner and my two actor friends who lived with us, they were actually voicing not my professional puppeteers, but they were being very kind because it was during pandemic and we couldn't have people over to the house.
Mhm.
But every day for 65 days, 50 of those days, we were creating either, I think there's like maybe 4 or 5 live ones on Facebook, but I was writing every night, and then at 7 o'clock in the morning, we'd get up and film these things in mine and my partner's bedroom. We had it all set up. It was just crazy. But it's the storyline arcs are similar for those little ones as for the 45-minute live ones. We do include some of that backstory in regards to getting to and from Chicago, and also mentioning that they visit their dad there, or live with their dad there. One of the ones, I believe, because of COVID, I think that's what happened, was one of the kids was in Chicago with him, staying for the week or something like that. But the story arcs are pretty much, I don't want to say the same in between the live and the ones that you might have seen on the computer, but I do try to not stray too far from the path, because otherwise people get confused and be like, I thought you said this, and I don't want to confuse people too much.
So the one of the kids is living with the dad, you said, right? One of the kids?
They take turns.
Sometimes. Right.
Yeah. He will either take Ashe for a week, or he will take Brandon for a week. Once in a while, he might take them both. It's just he works full time in Chicago, and so they would have to stay with an old neighbor lady. And 2 is a little more than 1. I got that because my grandmother, we would go to my great grandma's when I was a child, and at one point she would only take me or my brother because we were just too much together. So
got it.
So I used that little intricacy to include into the storyline of, nope, only 1 at dad's per week, because he's already tuckered out from working all day. Plus the 80-year-old woman who's watching the child can't handle too much energy.
When your first character, the dog Fifi, well, you gave some of so she's kind of vain, but then of course because she was a circus dog and she had to care about appearances. But
yes, that's exactly.
And from there, how did you bring in a character 2 then?
She is so, how do I say this?
Is she a rescue dog?
She is a rescue dog.
Yes.
She is also, like you said, she's very vain, but in a way where, how do I say? She's got an attitude. She's very self-involved, but she has a great heart. Like, they're all about the same age. She's 3, okay? And so though she is 3, she's a little older because he's times 7, right? So she when grandma is not in the picture, Fifi is the one, or Brandon also might be the one to give the advice. There's also Mr. T, who is me, that I try not to put me into the picture too much. And then there is Ashe's live character, imaginary friend, or if you want to say guardian angel, and their name is Angel. So we have these folks who, like Fifi, who though she is young, she still has the wherewithal to give advice, or at least learn from her own mistakes, and also then admit that she was wrong. She has the power of empathy to realize in herself that maybe what she did in the last scene wasn't too cool, and she probably hurt Ashe or Brandon's feelings. And so we just recap and read a book about that. And then at the end, with every show, Generally speaking, that's what helps wrap us up and solve our issue, or help us on to the next with something that we might not have learned or we might not have known prior to. We like to give just a little bit of new information to people that they might not have known already. So.
And when you choose your books, how is it difficult to find children's books that include empathy?
No. Kids, like I said before, they seem to be writing the books in that vein.
Mm-hmm.
In that, for instance, where's the one? I've been talking about the families. So, like, for instance, this one is Families, Families, Families by Sue and Max Lang. And we've used this one since 2017. And it promotes family. A lot of these do. The empathy comes from the fact that kids are realizing as we go through these very simple books, amazing pictures though, simplistic words, just describing the fact that we all have different families. We all have, and oh, cool, she has two sisters. Oh, she's living with her aunt. Oh, family's a family. And boiling it down to simplification, as simple as that, kids understand. It's just getting the language to where they can understand. And 9 times out of 10, they do. They do. And I, having been a teacher, I kind of watched what the kids read in the library after I brought my dog and they actually started paying attention to the library. Like I mentioned the last time, I saw what kind of books that they liked. And I even would bring in, this is a popular one at a lot of daycare facilities and things, but this is a good family, it's called The Family Book. It talks about family differences. And if you look close enough, I mean, it's literally, that's big writing. There isn't, it's simple words. It's the pictures and the words that get the message across. Mm-hmm. Simple words. That's what we boil down here. It's just phrases of things that kids can remember to calm our bodies if we're having a meltdown, to breathe, to calm our bodies. If our friend is having a meltdown, to remind our friend to calm our bodies, because that's what we should be doing. Kids understand that, and they do it.
So, that is kind of how you find your books, right? The ones with the beautiful pictures and the concise messages that are easily understood.
Yep. Exactly. Get the point across, and something that the kids, because of today's day and age, everything's so go, and that's the kids' brains too. Mm-hmm. We're a far cry away from Dick and Jane back in the day. That was like an encyclopedia of words and then like a teeny picture. Now it's completely reversed. It's these big, ornate book illustrations and like one line of words. But they don't need all that others. Look at Dick go, jumps, jump, Jane, jump. All that's gone by the wayside. We're doing important messages in a succinct fashion in one phrase, words, right? Kids understand that. And so as long as we're teaching through that instructional way, giving helpful advice, and ultimately listening to one another, because I appreciate not only, like, for me, co-creating things, but I also like to learn from people too. And I feel like we learn the most from people who are our own age or others like us in a way or another. So kids oftentimes will learn by watching other kids. and replicating what they did.
Mhm.
So if they see a kid calming themselves, they might take that calming breathing moment for themselves later that I don't see, or that mom does at home. Like, when did he start doing, it's spreading the word and having the kids continue it,
Mhm.
by doing little activities, or even asking mom to go to the bookstore to buy said book that we read, so
Mhm.
that they would have it, whether it's a reminder by reading the book, or hey, maybe they just really like the book,
Mhm.
So
This is WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM, and we have with us on WZRD via Zoom Tristan Tom, the co-creator and of Grandma D and the Magic Book Machine. So you did mention co-create. So who else is part of the creative team?
as of right now, it's actually just myself.
Uh,
I'm the one who had done everything. My dear friend of mine, Michael Shaw,
mhm,
has been directing us for the last year and change now.
mhm,
So I mostly consider him my other cohort in that end of things.
mhm.
And then for shopping our show to networks and things, I've been working with J&J Effects, which is Jason and Jean.
You kind of froze. Hopefully you'll be able to come back. If you could hear me, Tristan, you did freeze, and we I'm sure that we will get you back. There are still many questions that we want to ask, and there's so much still to discuss. Meanwhile, let us play some music so that while we are sorting this out on live radio.
Oh my goodness. I'm sorry.
That's
I'm
okay.
on my phone now. My computer died. I have
Ah,
no idea.
that's okay.
Sorry about that.
No problem. No problem at all. Uh, uh, what we were asking, you were discussing your co-creators, but yeah, but we understand that the characters, the set, the machine, you created all that. But you did mention Michael Sheen, your
Michael Shaw. Yep, Mike
Michael
Shaw.
Shaw, Michael Shaw, yes.
Yep.
Yes. So of course, you do need a director to direct the shows and put the
Yes.
pieces together. Mhm.
We've known each other for 20 some years, and I trust him like I trust my left hand. He's actually MedTech Mike on Chicago Med, if you know that show. So he's got experience not only acting, but I trust his directing styles like nobody's business. He's amazing. So I'm glad that I've had him. I've also collaborated on our music with Mariah Gamage. She is an astounding performer and musician from originally from Wyoming, but she is in Colorado. And she's done all of our music, the intro, the outro, and 2 other songs. And I just absolutely, she's just amazing. If you have a moment out there to look up our on the Grandma Dee and the Magic Book Machine Facebook page, on the top there is this song that plays with the video that is called Be Yourself, because there's no one else like you. It's called Be Yourself. And it's beautiful. And I knew I could count on her after the first song, which was our intro. And I welled up with tears because she got the show just right, how I wanted it, the vision, everything. I look up to her as a creator so much, and I'm grateful to have worked with her and Mike and the other, like Brandon and Erwin, who helped us during the pandemic, and then all of the cast, Mal and Gregory and Jamie, Yana, all of our wonderful folks that have helped us get to where we are. Still working, but grateful for all of those people who've helped us get this far.
It seems as if Mariah is very empathic to what you're aiming to do, and she writes these perfect, beautiful songs. Yeah, we noticed how beautiful the intro and outro songs were. So, awesome.
Thank you. Yeah. I gave her all of one thing. I'm like, here, go with something like this and this. She turned it out. I was so proud of her. It was great.
Did she write from when you had the first story? Let's say the first show, did it have a song, or did the first show include the song?
Nope. We used another song that we only had an outro song that the performers sang, I guess you could say a cappella, because there was no music behind it, though they learned it with music, if that makes sense, because we were just using it off the internet, so it was people's voices. So but when I asked her, I would like something similar to this, and she ran with it, and it ended up being 10 times more than wonderful than what I had even imagined. So I was very blown away by her talent and her partner's talent, who played the instruments as well in the background, the drum set and such. So
the Don't Say Farewell song, right? At the end?
Yes. Yep. It's time to say farewell for now. Yep.
Yeah, not say goodbye. Yeah.
Yep. She doesn't like to say goodbye.
Yes.
Yep. So yeah.
Wanted to ask you another question about Fifi. Did you base her at all on Peg, the little dog in Lady and the Tramp?
No. She's just been hiding in my brain, I guess. And I used to draw poodles when I was a little kid. Here is, if you can see, trying to point, so I apologize if you can't see it, but I have the renderings here of Fifi, Brandon, Ashe, and Grandma there. Sorry, trying to aim it for you. But I used to draw poodles all the time, cartoon them. And so I think that's where it came from. And then the other thing was little kids. I was teaching 3-year-olds when I had made Fifi, and everybody, boys, girls, kids, just in general, I should say, kids fought over the one pink tutu in my classroom. I don't know why. It was a Hello Kitty pink tutu. So I took the tutu that everybody liked. I took the one thing everybody always was talking about. They wanted to be a puppy, or every dog, like I don't want to say every storybook in our library had dogs in it, but puppies and dogs were very popular in our classroom. So she came about that way. She was similar to a cartoon drawing that I used to do when I was a little kid. And so based off that, plus a lot of my styles are reminiscent of, though I do my puppet creating different than Jim Henson or any other puppeteer or puppet maker. I do have influence from them. I worked with Sesame Street Live back in the early 2000s. And so that really, like, though I followed Sesame Street as a child and Mr. Rogers was a huge influence, that was where I was like, oh, this is cool. I could really make something like this. And then, you know, put it out of my mind until a couple, like 5 years or so later, when I was making the first one here. I had made others I do a children's camp. I believe I briefly mentioned that last time, where the children create the storylines, they draw out the puppets, and then we create them together. So I've been working with puppets for quite some time, and have seen what puppets can do for kids or for parents even. Because those puppets, when a child puts on even a sock puppet, it takes on a life of its own, something that you might not even see a kid do ever, like, or say something. It's what I say is an extension to their soul. And so go ahead.
Because they're going into a character, and maybe at that age they're kind of learning that they don't want to be criticized. But if they're another character and if there's any criticism, it's criticizing the other character and not them.
Yep. Nail on the head there. That is definitely the truth. Yep. And then like I was saying before, the broken filter thing, that it can recreate or redirect through this puppet and not be as, I don't want to say offensive, but not as they're very non-sugar-coaty with their answers oftentimes. So with this, it just when adding that, it's for adults and for kids, they're able to like understand that it's a healthy talk instead of just, you know, being silly or something. They're actually getting a point across, or they're saying their feelings to the parent or the family member or teacher. So yeah.
Do you do any of the acting too? Any of the puppetry and the characters, or does it have to be the actors that we hear? You know, those voices. Otherwise, the voices would be like different, and audience would know.
Ideally, I want them all to maintain the same voices. Unfortunately, during the pandemic, when my roommates were doing the voices, we just cut grandma because it would have been offensive, really. And then I just, I did voice Fifi, and a couple times I did Ashe. And then my partner during the pandemic, he would play Brandon. He also voiced Ashley a couple times. We were just kind of going back and forth during that time. But we have a cast that plays their same characters each time. Like Jamie plays grandma. Gregory, who's been with the cast since 2017, he's the only original member left. He plays this, he's just this, they're polar opposites. She's this, like, just over the top, like, girliest, like, you know, like, all into herself, just very
You mean Fifi the dog, right?
Fifi, yes. And then the polar opposite for Gregory. So it's very interesting to see that juxtaposition between the character and the performer. And I love that he brings such an exuberance in a way that it makes me giggle every time because of I know who he is. So it's great.
When you when the actors go on the road with the shows, do you make duplicates of the puppets for them? Because you have these at the house, and then are there another set if they go to another town? Is that, or are they just doing other puppet shows?
This is it. And funny thing, like when we have just moved, and when we were at the old place, there was like a storm one night, and anytime there's a storm or something, my roommate and my partner also knew that the puppets needed to get into the gray bag because those were going down to the basement with us. So they're just like my kids too. There's only one set of them, so if I don't know, I don't have patterns for them. They were like created out of literal whole cloth. Like there's if I lost one, that would be awful.
Right. Exactly.
So I don't send. We had opted to think. We were thinking about during that time doing like a Zoom thing and having the actual actors do the voices and just have the puppets at their houses. But I wasn't willing to send my puppets through the mail. So that's why my partner and my roommates ended up doing the voices through that time. Because I wasn't going to send these expensive puppets through the mail. Because remember back then, even the mail was just people weren't getting their medications, things went missing. I just wasn't willing to.
Not feasible, yes.
Risk it.
Too dangerous, too much work. Yeah, you care about those puppets, so
I do.
They're like part of the family.
Yep.
Can you share some of the experiences that led to the creation of every character?
Yeah. So I think I pretty much covered Fifi and her creation. I mentioned before the recycled products. So for instance, she came about with an old friend of mine brought all this fabric over that I thought was fabric, but it was like well, frankly, it was the back seat or back cover of a toilet from like the 70s.
Right.
Yes. So oftentimes they would cover the back side of where the water is in the toilet, and then they'll have a matching toilet seat cover and then maybe a rug around the bottom of it. Those were popular back in the 70s, maybe early 80s.
Like the little toilet tank wrappers, right? The toilet tank wrappers. And
yes. Yeah. So that's this. She is made out of one of those. So I use really random things to create. Her tongue is leather. So I try to find really interesting fabrics and things.
Yeah.
Say that again.
Her fur is that toilet bowl.
Yeah, this is the material that was on the back of
the tank. Yes.
The tank. Yes, correct. Yes. Can't think of the word. The tank. Yes. And then up here with Grandma, she is made out of a fitted sheet. Winter. What do you call it? Fleece sheet. Yes. And so she, like I said, she came about because of I wanted kids to be able to
hug a grandma.
Hug a grandma.
Yes.
And to, even if they didn't have a grandma, and now, like now they did. My partner and I have been together for going on 16 years, and I'll never forget getting to meet his grandma for the first time, who he was raised by. And that's where Grandma D came from. is her is Grandma Dorothy, his Grandma Dorothy. So Grandma D came from her, and she is by no means her at all, other than the fact that she gives advice. She is a warm spirit, and she does have some physical traits of actual Dorothy. And when my grandmother passed, who I was close with, she told me once, or told Brandon, excuse me, will you tell him now I'm his grandma? And so that really stuck with me. And I thought, well, there are other kids who probably don't have grandmas. Maybe I make one for them, so I'm thinking of the time, as a positive spirit. She was a positive influence in my life for the brief amount of time that I even got to know her, for those 10 years. But she raised the most magnificent grandson, Brandon, who is based off of, or who this puppet is based off of, that brand. So some are based off of people. Ashe has some of her their personality comes from some of these children that I have met in the past. One of them, the namesake, comes from a child who sought me out to tell me that they were trans, and they had to talk to their parents about it. And exactly, and this is rural Wyoming, and so not only are they scared, it's different in a rural community. I will say this as a person who falls under the LGBTQ plus family. It's very difficult to be yourself truly in a place that has been told to hate others, not like us. And so to reassure those kids out there that that is not how it is everywhere, and just to instill hope and to tell them that they're loved and that they have people that have their backs, that was so important. And so this one child, I asked if I could use their namesake, and they were very honored because of their path in their life and everything, and still keep in contact, with my little kids from back in the day. They're all adults now, but yeah, that's where Ashe kind of began. The personality is definitely a few of these children I've met along the way. And then just since they're also a poet, it's going to be fun to showcase their imaginary friend and their expertise in poetry and rapping. So poetry, they write poetry, but we find out that they're also really good at being a rap artist, who they learn that from Angel, the imaginary friend. So that's another storyline.
Right.
And then, of course, excuse me, Ashe, if we go back here, we have Novis Peeverton, who is the school bully, if you will. Neighborhood bully as well too. They live basically across the street from the kids here, and kind of cause havoc on the family and on Ashe's best friend Evelyn and and Novis are related. They're cousins.
Oh.
So they learn that they're not doing great things. And a lot of the storylines that include them show that those mistakes or those not nice things that they've been doing can be corrected if they choose to.
Mm-hmm.
And so we give options of how to change their behaviors and things like that through our storylines.
Mm-hmm. And then you're able to incorporate a book into that. So do you start with the story or do you start with the book?
No, we start the storyline, and then it works through to midway through where like, and we're consistently engaging our reading friends, which are our little viewers. And so we ask them, right, reading friends, or what do you think, reading friends? Things like that throughout. So it gives kids to mull it over in their head, and then they might even, I play it in my classroom, and they'll respond to the TV, even though they know it's fake, but yet they still shout out the answer,
Do you mean that they shout out some titles of books that relate to the material?
No, just like if the puppets are answering or asking a question or something to that effect,
Mm-hmm.
Asking another puppet another question, the kids watching the screen and the interaction between the two puppets, the kids might agree with one of the puppets and say, no, do, and just cheer on the other one or something to that effect. And so it's interesting to see the responses that the kids do give to each and that they bring to watching the shows.
Mm-hmm. Is it pretty wide, like the entire class is very engaged? Do you when you look at it, when you
I will
observe
say
the audience?
Yes, I will say there's always those couple kids who they're often la la land doing their own thing, and that's great. Be your own person, right? Do you. I'm not going to sit here and force you to watch this, because usually when we would watch the things that that we made, the videos, it would be during like snack time, so it's just a short brief time. I'm not using it as like, it could be used as classroom material. Mm-hmm. Yes, instructive material. Mm-hmm. But I chose to do it during a calm down time, which was snack in the afternoon. And so the kids would really respond then, because they're kind of, I don't want to say forced to watch, but they are stationary and eating and watching. So, for the most part, are engaged. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. What does the D in Grandma D represent?
Well, I was gonna say it is for Dorothy, but I also want to say I think personally it's determination. Mm-hmm. No, but it stands for Dorothy, honestly. Yep.
Yes, Brandon's grandma. Mm-hmm.
Correct. Yep. Yeah. Based loosely on Dorothy, and so beyond that, we've just D for determination through this whole thing.
Mm-hmm. You say that kids ask questions as well. Do you remember any of the best questions that the kids have asked?
Let's see. I have to think. That the kids have asked, you said?
Yes, and yes, of course, because they do become engaged, and do they ask questions, or are they just talking?
Yeah, okay. So they, for instance, for my last day with the last school I worked at, I had been mentioning that I do puppets. They always ask me about Ashe. They wanted, I said, I did promise them throughout the year, well, if we get such and such done, if you all get this, then I will I'll bring the puppet in and we can do a little show. And they were all excited for it. So they were all upset because they're like, Mr. T, we haven't even gotten to see your puppets and we're almost done with the school year. It's like, oh, well, that's okay. I have a little surprise planned. I think Ashe is going to come. And they did. The puppet and Mal, the puppeteer, we did a little showcase for them, sang a little bit, and then did a Q&A. And one of the children asked Ashe if they were like their friend in the class below us, which was a friend who would have been 4 or 5, and they are gender non-binary.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was really like, oh, it caught me off guard that they were, not in a negative way, just that I was like, oh, they were paying attention. We've talked about this before. And so through what we were talking about and who Ashe is, they linked up A plus, and B to get, oh, is Ashe like our friend?
Mm-hmm.
And yes, good work, you got it. So but yeah, that was probably one of the most to where like, yeah, I had this like, oh my goodness, like they got it. They see what the character's bringing, and it was just like really it was a great moment. But it's generally usually just kids wanting to know simply like, why are you so soft? Or things like that. What are your eyes made of? I can touch your eyes, things like that. So I would have to say that's probably the most interesting one that I've had.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, what about the parents? Do parents participate in the audience as well? Or is it just the kids?
I don't think I've had any adults ask or say anything. I had one who actually did the placing for one of the into a live machine, or into a live show into the machine. But yeah, no, it's mostly teachers asking me and those when I'm trying to like have us come into schools and things, if it's appropriate, which I don't like, but appropriate for all schools, the students.
Mm-hmm. Then do you find schools that
sure again? What's that?
Do you find schools that believe that the material is not appropriate, that they don't include it in their curriculum? Well, they don't welcome.
Though many schools are very diverse and welcoming, there are still many who are still finding their way with acceptance of others not like them.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I am trying to sell the idea or bring the idea of a family of puppets, of which one is trans, I feel as though they're not hearing the fact that we're bringing empathy and compassion. You're hearing something beyond that. And of all of the characters, Ashe is the most relatable, realistic, and the most amazing one up here, that they're my favorite. And so right. I get down a little bit because of that. When I've had those conversations with even the leader of a theater, really, yeah, there's been some where there's plenty of positive, there has been some negativity as well. But for the most part, it's all been a positive feedback from from support, like I
Mhm.
said, online with parents saying thank yous and things, but bringing us into schools and organizations, it's some places are just, you have to know where you can take your show, because there are
Mhm.
some schools that I've learned are just not going to be welcoming to our
Mhm.
show.
In other words, you don't even approach those schools with a possibility of doing a show then.
Unfortunately, no. I would like, because like I said, these storylines are not just for queer people or just for children.
Mhm.
You can get a message whether you're a 70-year-old straight man or a 14-year-old girl or a whatever. Their message is there. It's easy enough for a 2-year-old to understand. These
Mhm.
shows are for 2 on up. A lot of it, because of my writing and the way that my brand of humor, if you will, I grew up with Pee-wee's Playhouse as well, and in there was always a few, even in Sesame Street, really, a few jokes that made adults chuckle, and so I do put a few things in there so that we hold the attention of the parents too, who are bringing the kids to these performances. So.
Mhm. And they're all accompanied by parents because they're so young, right?
Correct. Yep.
Mhm.
Mhm. We'd like to, originally we wanted to set it up as selling the live show as a safe space, a safe haven for kids who might be questioning or themselves, be it sexuality or gender, what have you. And so we would give this place, and so that they would have others who they might feel at least comfortable enough for the time being to be themselves,
Mhm.
and to read with others who aren't like us, but we can celebrate one another.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Got it. For the, would you have done anything differently looking back at past Grandma D and Magic Book Machine shows?
Yeah, I am desperately still trying to include a Black trans writer
Mhm.
for my team. I love telling stories. I want to try to stay true to heart as much as I can. I can tell a story from a silly dog. I've had a grandma, but by no means am I a Black trans child. And I don't ever want anyone to think that I'm commandeering somebody's life
Mhm.
to this. This mission was to just have everyone be accepted so that they could all be themselves, so that we could all just be loving and comfortable in our own lives.
Mhm.
And so I just, by creating Ashe, they are very important to showcase trans kids who are out there who don't get the representation that they need.
Mhm.
And
And and you don't find any curriculum, right? When
no,
you for teaching,
no,
no, for teachers, it has to be up to the teacher to address, what you see that you need, that kids need. Mhm.
yep. And really, they give you a certain type of just kind of, oh, what do you say? Like, I don't want to say dance around things, but definitely don't answer the questions that the children have. And that's just not how I operate.
Mhm.
And that's unfortunate that a lot of schools are set up that way. And I get it, because certain things parents should have to bring to the table. Empathy is not one of them. Empathy can be taught anywhere. having compassion towards one another, and accepting self is huge. Ashe doesn't care what you think of them. And I love that about them. They get, we all get hurt from time to time. And you do see that when, like, a little kid, the bully said something and they ran off to their room. They're little kids, just like a human child.
Yes. Have you had any offers for airing Grandma D and the Magic Book Machine on other media?
Yes, we've had some interest, and with two different, a network and then also streaming service. And so we were really lucky to have been, Jay and JFX had shopped us around last year 2 years ago to things, and we ended up being in the final, I don't know what you want to say, the last spots before
finalist spots.
Finalists.
Yes.
Woo, searching for a slot on PBS for a show. And so we were very honored to have been thought of, and we're right up there with the other show that they ended up going with, which is on there now, called Don Quixote. And so that one is a Mr. Rogers production. So it was really an honor to be up there and thought of something just as much as Mr. Rogers and Fred Rogers Corporation. So we're just going to keep reworking and working and getting our word out there to the kids who need it. And that's that. Yep.
Yes. Well, I guess PBS could see all the quality of your puppet work, and then of course the stories are good too. But what about compensation? Have you ever had any compensation for all this work that you're doing with Grandma D and the Magic Book Machine? If you can share.
Not. I mean, other than what was paid for, yes, we were paid for many gigs. So we get paid for the 2-person shows that we've done at the schools, 2 to 3-person shows, the full cast ones. Then with those, I'm also paying them as well. And so, sorry, dog. So I'm pay. Yes. So with the pay that I get from, like, when we perform for Art in Response to Violence out at Northeastern University, October in 2019, something like that, then yeah. But for online stuff, wasn't. We did online birthdays as well during the pandemic. So with that, yeah, there was instances.
Yes, birthdays. And then what were you saying about Northeastern Illinois University? Did someone at the school hire you for an event too? Is that what you meant?
Yeah, it was Art in Response to Violence. And so we got to, and so we were chosen to perform there. And that was in October of 2019. And we did, it was a anti-bullying one, and it featured Novis, the beaver over there, and then the Marlene, Queen of Mean by Jane Lynch. And we had, it was a really good show. And it was, I'm glad we got to perform out there. It was a really great experience. So unfortunately, with the pandemic, we weren't able to but hopefully they'll get things up and running again and we can do it again. That'd be fun.
when you address the gray areas and social stigmas, how in the stories, how do the kid audiences react? You said that they understand very clearly. At least 9 out of 10 do. Do you do anything about that? 1 out of 10 that maybe needs a little bit more explanation.
Yes. I think I would consider it more towards the end. I'm going to say for the live shows, we give an opportunity at the end, or we have in the past, where after the show ends, the puppeteers with the puppets I was having them do will go out into the lobby or the just before they leave the theater space, and the children who, for this, it might be like are shy, who don't want to come up and put either something in the machine, or who are just kind of hiding under mom's coat or whatever. We'll bring them down face to face, like bring the puppet right up close to them and ask them if they have any questions, and but it might be something as simple as putting their arm and hugging Fifi or something to that effect. I don't ever want a child to not take away something from it, but I can't solve every child problem in regards to paying attention and stuff, but I try as much as I can to try to get them to have a memory of this, even if it's, oh yeah, that crazy person made me talk to a stuffed dog at the end of the show.
Well, then, do you have any kids that come back to you and say that, well, I really enjoyed this, or maybe now I understand, whereas before I didn't understand? Or do they come to ask if they could work with you?
I've had all of that. I've had all of that. I still have students who one I can think of specifically that I'm friends with their mom, and they must be like almost a teenager now, and they're still, up until last year, were asking me, do you need help with puppets? Do you still need help with? I'm like, you're still a little young. Maybe when you're a little older. And then as for others, it goes back to parents whispering to me on the internet that their kids were watching, or I've had kids in class tell me, like, my mom let me watch Grandma D last night, and I was like, oh, very cool, So it is something where I can see it's being used at home, even if it is the kids that I have either taught or something to that effect, been an influence in their life.
You say that they're using what they learned from your show in their lives.
I would like to think so. Yes.
Well, finally, Tristan, if our listeners wanted to learn more about Grandma D and the Magic Book Machine, how would they go about learning more?
Sure. Well, Trudy, you can go on, we're on YouTube, Grandma D and the Magic Book Machine's on YouTube. You can also follow Grandma D and the Magic Book Machine on Facebook. We're also on Twitter, believe it or not, and also on TikTok. My Tristan Tom Designs, who I make the puppets, so there's a lot of the work is on Instagram, as well as on Tristan Tom Designs on Facebook. So there's quite a few places that you can find out the information. Beyond that, there's also a few articles from interviews past from local here in Chicago news organizations. And beyond that, you can always email me for a live show opportunities at grandmadbookings@gmail.com. And you can always just reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram in a direct message on there. I'm always open for questions or anything like that. And of course, if anybody needs anything, I'm here for you. I have ears to listen and a heart to give. So.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Tristan Tom. Very talented puppeteer and creator of Magic, Grandma D, and the Magic Book Machine.
I know it's a mouthful, isn't it? Well, thank you so very much. I want to say, just as Grandma D always says, we don't much care for goodbyes. So for now, we'll say farewell.
Awesome. Yeah, I wish that we had the
cue up the music.
Yes,
Cue up the music.
I probably could do that. Okay, thank you so much.
I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too. And
thank you.
You're welcome. And this is WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM.
Were you good?
Yes.
All right. I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Trudy.
Thank you.